All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Hey, we're live. We are live. We are live. Monday night, November 25th. You guys do not have my full attention, but I will do this. Are you guys watching that Ravens game? I had to come down to the basement and obviously, talk about some Green Bay Packers stuff. But boy, those Ravens. 4 drives in the first half, 4 touchdowns, 28 points in the first half. That looks like a really good football team and definitely a much better performance out of them tonight than what we saw out of the Green Bay Packers last night. So what's up, Big B? Thank you for tuning in. You are here right on cue. Very nice. Thank you for tuning in. One of my very early faithful Pour Another adopters. Trayvon calling in or chiming in here. Rough loss last night. Love the team though. Yeah, it was a tough game. It was a tough game to watch. It was hard to finish watching the game and get through the second half of that game. I mean, you always feel like you have Aaron Rodgers, that there might be a little bit of hope left in the tank, down 23-0. Anything can happen. They were able to go, stop San Francisco 3 and out, get the ball back, and hopefully we thought that they could kind of turn it around. But man, they just couldn't get anything going. That San Francisco defense is not to be messed around with by any means. I do love my team. I will never not love the Green Bay Packers. And hey, we're still 8-3. We're going to dive into a lot of this as this night rolls on. But obviously not the performance that you want to see out of the Green Bay Packers last night. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So, Junior, what's up, man? Thank you for tuning in tonight. Are you guys hearing crazy noises coming from behind me? So, I will explain this, I think, a little bit more as the night rolls on. But I have a month and a half, 2-month-old? 6 weeks? I have a baby behind me. I got a baby behind me that decided, you might even be able to see portions of what's going on behind me, who decided to sleep for the last 3 hours and then wake up about 10 minutes before I went live. So we'll get through this. Future Packer star fan, future Packer fan in the making, 100%. I don't get why people are saying they want 7 weeks. Thanks. That's my wife, ladies and gentlemen. My wife is tuning in. I don't get why people are saying they want Capers back. Crazy world. I definitely do not want Capers back whatsoever. But I think there is some validity behind some of the struggles by Dom Capers versus what we have. With what we've seen with Mike Pettin. I think obviously there's some head scratching things going on in that defense. And one thing that really stands out to me as far as that defense is that we do not have any defensive playmakers whatsoever in that backfield, especially I'm talking about your defensive backs, right? No, we don't have anybody that's able to kind of go out there and take away the ball. You guys hear this, baby? I'm gonna get through this. We're gonna get through this. Put a nook. There you go. Take the nook. Take the nook. Take the nook. All is better. And my wife is totally watching my parenting skills right now, which has definitely got me on edge. But yeah, we need some defensive playmakers. I think obviously Alexander is probably hands down our best defensive back in the backfield of the defense. But outside of that, there's not really anyone else that really steps up. I think Savage has tons of potential. I think for a rookie, he's played admirable for coming in there and only having really 10 games, 11 games of experience in the NFL. But outside of that, we need someone else to definitely take charge and make some plays. We're just not picking off the ball. There's not any ball hawks whatsoever. And then you have Kevin King, who I hate. I don't know whether I should curse or not whatsoever on this podcast, but man, Kevin King, he frustrates the hell out of me, 100%. So yeah, that's. I don't think we should get Capers back. I don't know. I think the Packers need to have a strong finish for Mike Pettin to really feel comfortable with his job. I think the players absolutely love him. I think Mike Pettin's a great coach, but they have holes. They have a hard time covering tight ends, and they give up a lot of plays throughout the game. Their red zone defense is absolutely awesome. I know, and that's how she feels about the red zone. No, about giving up. Here, take this. I'm going to have to end up holding her here pretty soon. We're going to have to hold a baby. We're going to have to hold a baby on Pour Another Packers podcast. This is live, folks. We do this. There's no second takes. So can we just cut Jimmy Graham? This is podcast 1919. Thank you for tuning in. You are also a faithful viewer of the show. Can we just cut Jimmy Graham and save $10.2 million? That throw was perfect, and he couldn't bring it down. Story of his life as a Packer. And rumor on this street is that was a catch. Now, whether or not that would have been overturned is the other mystery equation to go along with this, but they had their Sunday Night Football referee analyst chime in and say, hey, he took 2 steps with possession, came down with the ball, and the ground caused the fumble. If the Packers would have challenged it, it should have been a catch. But I don't want to risk my challenges or my timeouts in such a crucial game with these referees. And the Packers already tried that once with a challenge early on in the game, and I don't know. He should have definitely came down with it. He should have secured it. Jimmy Graham, I agree with you 100%. Him and Kevin King are our 2 most overrated players on the roster, hands down. We need to figure out a solution to cornerback, which is definitely going to be a harder thing to replace than what we have at the tight end situation, because I think we have talent with Tanya, and I think we have talent with Sternberger. I think Mercedes Lewis is probably coming into his final year. He's just getting older, and that's probably the only thing that keeps him back. But yeah, I mean, Graham, Kevin King, these guys have got to start playing better if the Packers have any shot at making a deep playoff run for the team. So what's the move when the D-line is destroying our O-line? Well, I think you have to play. There were hardly any screen passes whatsoever last night against the San Francisco 49ers, which is a little bit of a head-scratcher. They did have that one drive where they were able to get some quick slants out there throughout the game, and that was really the one that kind of propelled them down the field the best. All right. We're going with the baby. We got a baby. Here we go. This is happening. Yeah, we know. You're a very needy individual. But I'm still going to talk the Packers. She's upset because they lost last night. I guarantee you 100%. So that's one of the biggest things. You got to get screens out there. There were no screen plays, screen passes going on whatsoever last night. They couldn't get Aaron Jones really involved whatsoever as well. I think Jamal Williams just continues to be that guy that will fight for extra yards. So he definitely steps up more throughout that game, but they just couldn't get anything going to Jones. And then there's just a head-scratching thing going on as far as what we're doing with Devontae Adams. I think he had seven catches for 42 yards. I mean, not obviously a breakthrough of a game. He had the one rushing touchdown, the only touchdown that Green Bay was able to put up. But yeah, I'm feeding a baby. If you guys are just tuning in, this is Dad Life 101. There is no rest for the wicked whatsoever. And I can't even take an hour to myself to talk about the Packers without having to take care of a little baby. So this is definitely happening. Grant wants to call in. Of course he does. I don't even have my Discord set up right now, man. I had Discord going twice the last 2 weeks. I had them set up, and nobody wanted to call in, so I did not even bother with it this week. RD was doing all right. They had the 49ers punting. We just gave them too many shots to do something. I think we need offensive weapons. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about the offensive weapons. There's talks about having, going out there and getting someone like Antonio Brown even. I've heard that one kind of thrown around in the wild here a little bit. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, nor do I think that he's even eligible to play if he were to come back into the league. But our defense they played fairly well. They got put in a rough position on the 2-yard line as their first chance out there on the field. Gave up a touchdown. You go down 7-0 right off the bat. The defense played good until there was about 3 minutes left in the second half. But at that point, they gave up a touchdown. Packers offense goes out on the field. They have a shot to maybe put something together, make it 7-20 at least heading into halftime. And they couldn't do that. So then, obviously, San Francisco gets the ball back. They march down the field again. They get themselves a field goal. And just like the rest of the world, it's time to burp a baby. Don't worry, she'll be okay. So, podcast time's in. So, as a former quarterback, oh, look at you. So, as a former quarterback, former safety, and coached a defensive coordinator, I see what Pettine was trying to do, but he should have lined up man and dumped the damn zone. Now, getting rid of the zone has been a problem for the Packers this entire season. I think we've all been talking about getting rid of the zone quite a lot. really throughout the entire year. They still haven't given up. They still haven't kind of lost that mentality. And I think the biggest thing with that is that it's giving up those plays to the tight ends. It's giving up opportunity for the defense to just kind of, actually man up against their guys. But I don't feel all that confident with what we have on one of our cornerback sides. I'm going to choke this baby now as I try to burp her. I don't feel confident on one of the sides. Whoever Kevin King is covering, I don't feel like he has the skill set to take down the wide receiver at that point. And I think for the longest time, Kevin King has been struggling with injuries, and my thought process was if Kevin King stays healthy, we're going to have ourselves a good defense. But now that he's been healthy for pretty much the whole year, he dealt with a little bit of an injury early on in the season. He's not seeming like that lockdown corner that we want to have opposite of Jair Alexander, and it's so frustrating to see him constantly get burnt week in and week out. It's super frustrating. Kevin King is a good corner. He's not being used correctly, unfortunately. I would love for you to chime in, podcast, on how you think the correct way to use Kevin King is, because being some of the pedigree that you have as far as some of your football acumen, I would love to know what your suggestion is to use Kevin King. Is he a slot guy? Is it kind of similar to what we had with Demarius Randall, where if you would have put him in at safety, he would have been more successful versus a cornerback? I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it out of him. He's definitely got the length. He's got the speed, but he gets burnt constantly. What else what is going on, little girl? What? Lenny. You need to lay down. It's terrible timing. We should be, let's see here. Junior chimes in. We should have done no huddle to get the defense tired. That was something that, okay. I really want to dive into this, but you need to, definitely lay down. So, there's two reasons why the Packers came out yesterday looking as flat as they did, right? One has to be the fact that they came off of a bye, and yes, you're healthy, yes, you're rested, yes, you have time to prepare, but we've seen in the past with the Packers teams that when they come off of extended rest or extended breaks, it takes them a while to get going. And this is more on the Packers' fault. I think for the most part, the San Francisco's defense looks absolutely phenomenal. I think they just played better 100% of the time. But the other reason that we have to look at is probably just the lack of experience that came with having a rookie coach like Matt LaFleur calling the plays and calling the shots. Come on. At least the video's not stuttering. So you guys you got crystal clear footage tonight of the chaos that happens for a father. But yeah, I look at those two as the main reasons as far as possibly why the Packers came out flat. Did I predict in my final thoughts that the Packers would win? Yeah, of course I did. I thought that they were healthy. I thought they were coming off the bye. I thought that they had time to prepare. You looked at the San Francisco team, they were banged up. They hadn't been playing well the very last 3 weeks, so I kind of felt like Green Bay had that momentum coming in the game and were ready to kind of themselves put the league on notice as them being one of the better teams in the league. But I think what absolutely kills me the most, and I was just as disappointed as I'm sure many of you other guys were watching this game, it wasn't that they looked flat. You look at that Chargers game from a couple weeks ago, the team just didn't show up. Nobody had any energy behind them, and they looked like they were just going through the motions, and they got beat by a bad team. There was no excuses for them to lose last night, and that's probably the most frustrating thing for me to have to deal with, is that this is a team that if they want to go to the Super Bowl, if they want to have that type of season and that type of team, you have to show up when you play these types of opponents, and they didn't show up, and that really leaves you kind of scratching your head as far as what this team can truly be and where that bar is for what teams who are Super Bowl contenders look like. I think that after last night, San Francisco, hands down, looks like a Super Bowl contender. I think Jimmy Garoppolo played extremely well. Obviously, George Kittle is emerging as one of the better, if not best, tight ends in the league, right up there with Travis Kelce. You look at that defense who was flying all over the place, and they didn't even have D Ford in last night, and they were still able to put pressure on Rodgers constantly. It's that looks like a team that can go deep into the playoffs. Then you look at a team like Baltimore tonight that is absolutely just manhandling the Los Angeles Rams. That there's a swagger behind that. That offense looks extremely good. If I had to give you my Week 12 Super Bowl predictions, it's got to look like right now that it's going to be the Ravens and the 49ers, because these two teams are clicking and firing on all cylinders. Obviously, next week's game against the Ravens and 49ers is going to be one hell of a matchup. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And at this point, the Packers just need to find out. They need to get hot at the right time, and they need to figure out over these next 3 weeks exactly what type of team they're going to be, because the next biggest game, and really I think the season-defining game, is that matchup against Minnesota. I didn't think that the Packers would have to beat Minnesota to still have a successful deep playoff run, but they're going to have to beat some of these really good teams, and that's really the next one on the schedule that they're going to have to face and definitely come out and play hard against. I mean, that could potentially be the deciding factor of who wins the NFC North, but it's also going to give you just a sense of achievement and a boost of confidence as you head into the playoffs, that you can match up against some of these teams and go out there and perform. So I looked at that as essentially a throwaway game, as the Vikings being the clear favorite, but I think the Packers really need to focus and get better in the next 3 weeks to prepare for that Viking game, and not just lay another stinker of a performance out there, is what I want to say. Yeah, Rams looking like we did last night. I agree 100%. Except the Packers were only down 23-0. I guess the Rams managed to get some points, but they gave up 28 in the first half, which the Packers only gave up 23. So I guess that's a slight boost of confidence. Oh, I wish you would just burp and then lay down. All right, what else we got here? Again, if you're tuning in just now, ignore the baby. Babies happen. I'm a dad with no wife home tonight, so we're still talking Packers. It's all good. There was no getting that defense off their key man. They're just too physical. We need more offensive weapons. I think that's something that's definitely been floating around. You just need to protect Rodgers. Rodgers had no time. If Rodgers can get some time, he'll make those receivers better 100%, but he couldn't even breathe in that backfield, let alone get a clean pass out whatsoever. I vote never playing in California again. Well, I think the reality of the situation, Big B, is that we might have to go to California, and if we don't have to go to California, your consolation prize for not going to California is heading out to Seattle. And do you really want to face off in Seattle for any sort of reason? That's not an easy place to win whatsoever. The Packers could have themselves a tough road in the playoffs, and like I said, they're going to have to figure out what type of football team they want to be here down the stretch. Podcast following up on the Kevin King side of things. Being a big corner, he has speed and great ball skills, but using him in these multi-zone schemes are not good. It doesn't utilize his strengths. He shouldn't play flat man and sub at safety box safety/box linebacker. So you're essentially agreeing 100%. They got to get rid of that zone defense, and you feel a little bit more comfortable with him matching up man to man. I don't know. Maybe that's all they have to do. Maybe man to man will be the end all solution for the Packers defense. But I mean, you can't discredit what we have for pass rushers. You can't. That's absolutely, bar none, some of the best in the league, but then you really have to figure out what you have going on in that secondary whatsoever. Say the season ended right now, what position are you drafting? I am drafting cornerback, and that is, I don't believe in first round wide receivers. I don't believe really, maybe second round wide receivers I'm okay with. But I think you have to draft corner. I think you have to find someone in that defensive back. I look at Savage, look at Amos. Those guys are both locked down for multi-year contracts, so those positions are good. I think Jair obviously plays very well and he has a lot of upside and is going to be a dominant player in this league. You got to find someone either to fill in at cornerback 3 in case Kevin King actually steps up his game and performs. Otherwise, I think you have to find someone to replace him and go opposite of Jair Alexander. That's my personal opinion if the season ended right now. There were times, though, that wide receivers couldn't get open. There were times that wide receivers couldn't get open, but that's always been the case. We haven't had wide receivers that could get open since the days of Jordy Nelson, James Jones, Donald Driver, and I know I'm forgetting one. Maybe Greg Jennings? That's not it. And it's one of those. It's one of those combinations. I don't even know if all four of those get. Randall Cobb, that's the other one. We haven't had guys get open since we've had wide receivers like that. And I do think we need a wide receiver. I think we need a 2 or a 3 wide receiver. But I don't think that we need to use a first round pick on it per se. I think we got to figure out once again in the first round, go out there and draft some defense. Inside linebacker, the most. That's Buzzy's personal opinion. And I don't know why are we going down the draft right now, guys? The season's not over. The season did not end right now. We have lots of time to improve. Lots of time to figure this out. Kevin King and Tony Brown are our 2 best man corners, and if we use one in the slot and use one as a rush corner or a trail corner, that might be the solution. Did you fall asleep? Fall asleep. She's making a face like she didn't fall asleep, so I'm not counting on that too much. So there was an article that came out on Packers Worldwide that I thought I would kind of touch base on as a baby cries behind me. Let's see here. Where is it? And a lot of it, I mean, apparently there's a guy out there that's... Come on. Where is it? There you go. There you go. Holy cow! So he gave up an article. This is from sportsdaily.com. 10 things we learned from the Packers' 37-8 loss to the 49ers. I thought it'd be kind of fun to run through, these 10 things that he pointed out and maybe comment on them we'll take some questions as well out here. But his number one thing was Packers weren't ready to play. And kind of what he goes off of here is that, they came off of their bye week. Like I've said before, they came off their bye week. They should have been ready. And for countless times, they were constantly getting beat throughout that game. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that they didn't come ready to play. I think this was a little bit more of a coaching problem more than a player or talent problem. I think obviously the loss of Bulaga, 7 snaps into that game, was a huge difference for that offensive line. I don't think Alex Light performed very good. And then you look at Corey Linsley, he was getting beat constantly right up the gut, and that became a problem with getting the run game going and getting, essentially any sort of offense going. So that offensive line is kind of a make it break it. If that line struggles, our team struggles. We noticed this against the Chargers, and we noticed it again against the San Francisco 49ers, that offensive line needs to stay healthy and stay active. What else we got going on? So reason number 2, defense still can't stop opposing tight ends. We talked about this a little bit. So if we look at the Packers' last, let me pull this up right now. The last 5 tight ends that they faced off against, you look at Waller, he had 7 catches, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They did fairly well against Kelsey, holding him to 4 catches, 63 yards, but he still gave up a touchdown. Henry had 7 catches for 84 yards. Greg Olsen had 8 catches for 98 yards, and Kittle had 6 catches for 129 yards and 1 touchdown. And that is something that we are not able to figure out, and that is got to be something that they have to have on their radar. It's just frustrating. You look at coaches like Mike Pettin and the talent on that defense, you think that they would eventually start to counter-correct on how to stop these tight ends, and they just haven't been able to do it. And maybe a lot of it has to do with exactly what Podcast 1919 is saying, is going out there and maybe putting your personnel in the right positions and quit playing zone and utilize your guys' strengths. But it's definitely something that they have continued to struggle with, and I can't figure out why that baby is still crying behind me. She should be full. She should be fed. She should be comfortable and warm. She's got a nook in her mouth. She's just got to quiet down. Just quiet down. Hit back some of these questions here. I really don't like Martinez covering tight ends. There's a lot of people out there that don't like Martinez, but I'm a huge Martinez fan. He had that great sack last night. He's not a top, elite linebacker by any means, but I love his game. I'm a Blake guy. I'm a Martinez fan through and through. We have problems that won't be solved. Buzzy, I would love for you to elaborate on the we have problems that won't be solved, because there's a reason why I think that I don't film these videos directly after a loss or shortly after the game ends, because if you guys would have you didn't want to be around me last night. Maybe some of you can start to relate with how you felt after that game last night, but I was at that Philadelphia loss in week 4. I came away from that game looking at our run defense and thinking, man, we face Ezekiel Elliott next week. We're going to get run all over. This defense has problems. This defense has problems. And then the more I kind of, I slept on it. I thought about the next day. Okay, they'll correct it. They'll figure it out. They got off their assignments. Yeah, the defense still isn't great. The rush defense isn't all that great. But last night, I mean, for them to have that performance, they knew the stakes that were on the line. It was for the first seed in the NFC. They knew all the implications that went behind it. The moment was there. They flew out on Saturday, so you couldn't blame their trip and travel thing. They just got outplayed, plain and simple. San Francisco was the better team last night. Their offense played better than our defense, and their defense played a hell of a lot better than our offense. When you have an offense that goes 1 for 15 on third down throughout the game, that just isn't going to cut it. They found themselves in like third and long situations constantly. And then on fourth down, they had 3 fourth down attempts throughout the game where they went 1 for 3. And I think the one that they got was called pass interference that caused the Packers to get themselves a first down. So you just don't really... They got outplayed, and that's the cause for concern. Now, what they have to their advantage is 3 relatively softer games. I won't say easy games, but softer games. They have to travel to New York. That's a team that they should beat. They get a home game against Washington. That's a game that they should win. Bears come to town as their final home game of the season, and that should be a game that you win. The Bears are struggling. Mitch Trubisky's struggling. There's no new news there. So they have 3 games to get themselves on track. You have to beat the Minnesota Vikings if you're going to gain any sort of confidence, any sort of momentum heading into that playoffs, because outside of that, the best teams that you have beaten this year were a Kansas City team without Patrick Mahomes. You're looking at a Vikings team with a struggling Kirk Cousins in week 2. And then, an Oakland team that's been up and down. What else? What other great teams have we beat? We haven't really... We're kind of in line with what the San Francisco 49ers were, but except the 49ers just took it to us 100%. They completely... spanked our asses. I'm just going to say it. They spanked our asses. Can't deny it. Can't deny it. San Francisco is very good at the line and the G-line man-to-man on offense and offline, and they find the weakness and they tee off. Mark Ingram needs to get 8+ to win me my game. Thanks for your fantasy update, Big B. Always appreciate that. Snow Wiz chiming in. Refs did not help us either. The Graham no catch and the Rodgers fumble basically killed us in the first quarter. Now, when I read that, I'm going to assume... I got to put a nook in again here pretty soon, but I'm going to assume that you're of the mindset that Rodgers did not fumble that ball in the first drive of the game. There it is. There it is. Take it. But I think that Rodgers did fumble. I think it was a clear and blatant, obvious fumble. I even shouted out loud to the people that were around me that 49ers were going to bring an all-out blitz on that third down, and that's exactly what they did. The catch by Jimmy Graham, yeah, that probably should have been a catch and ruled a catch or challenged for a catch, but who knows if they overturn it. And then outside of that, just Adams chest bumping someone, that was a stupid penalty or a no call. There were bad calls throughout that game, and I think it caught up to us. I tweeted out for the first time in a very long time that all of our lucky breaks that we've had throughout this year to get us some victories in some of those hard-fought games finally reared its ugly head in prime time on Sunday night against the 49ers, because we were not getting those calls. They were actually either missed or going against us, and I don't blame the refs. I think I've said it and made it obviously clear that the 49ers were the better team. They played far better than we did. But yes, there were calls missed, there were calls blown, and that is always the nature of the game to the fullest extent. And you can't put that as your blame or for the reason that you didn't go on. And the Saints can probably use that as an excuse on why they didn't get to the Super Bowl last year. But because they bitched about it so much, now the rest of the league is absolutely just fucking losing their minds on what pass interference is. So we don't even want to go down that road. Let's not even touch it. Catherick, thanks for chiming in. I think you're new to the comment section, so maybe you're one of the new subscribers. I'm up to 860 so far. So let's thank you guys for tuning in. I've been saying Pettin was bad since we literally had a bottom 3 defense last year. Catherick, don't come in here and talk like that. I think Pettin is a perfectly capable defensive coordinator. I don't really know who you replace him with. I mean, if you could give me a viable backup solution for a defensive coordinator, maybe I will entertain your logic. But the players love playing for Mike Pettin, and I think for the most part, the defense can be good with Mike Pettin. There's just been some head scratching big plays that they've given up that just have not gone their way. If he brings the blitz, it seems like he's successful 90% of the time. He needs to look at blitzing more too. That's personal opinion. Don't put that. That's off the record. I wish they would blitz more. I definitely wish they would blitz more. Junior chiming in. If EQ didn't get hurt, he would have been that wide receiver we needed to step up. I think even Lazard makes a great argument for that wide receiver that we need to step up. He had a terrible block for a wide receiver screen to Davante Adams last night, but I love seeing him get the ball and love the passion that he plays with. I would love to see them get Lazard involved in the game a lot more. Yeah, you're awake. Hello. You're live on the internets. Let's take this. Take that down. We'll be fine. We'll get through this. You guys are talking with each other in the comment section, so I appreciate that. That's always a fun time too, where you guys can really kind of put it to each other, because nothing says one team like fighting with one another in the comment section. But it's good. We can't all agree. And that's one of the biggest things that I took away from this game is if you guys are part of any Packer groups on Facebook, man, there is a divide 100%. I mean, I think it's important to be critical of the team and be upset and be disappointed and frustrated. I don't think you have to be like the Packers are the greatest thing since sliced bread 100% of the time. I'm a Packer fan, loyal 100% through and through. But when they go out there and just get their asses handed to them on primetime television in a game that matters, you have, I think, as Packer fans who are as invested in it and frustrated. So they have to, I mean, it's all right. I mean, it's okay to not be in love with your team 100% of the time. I'm not ever going to jump off the band, or there isn't a bandwagon. I'm not going to jump ship anytime soon, but they have to play better if they're going to get to where they want to go, and the Packers are going to get themselves another Lombardi trophy. That's all I'm trying to say. What else we got going on out there? I'm trying to move through. You guys are talking to each other. I just don't know why Matt LaFleur didn't put Rodgers into the gun pistol the rest of the game and use Lewis to help on the line to give them those timing throws. And that goes back to that young coaching. I agree with you a lot throughout what you're saying. They should have, I thought for sure, coming off of a bye week and having, that time to prepare for the game, that they would throw some different looks at the San Francisco 49ers, and for the most part, they didn't throw a whole lot of different looks. They had a couple plays, that were called. I think I can probably count on one hand, maybe 4 or 5 plays that were called throughout the game that, I hadn't seen yet this season that maybe San Francisco couldn't have prepared for. Some wraparounds, some, little toss plays to Davante Adams, which we've used that with other wide receivers, but we hadn't used that with Adams yet. The coaching, this is the side effect of having a rookie head coach that without a whole lot of experience in the NFL. You're gonna have these games where he is gonna get out coached, and there was a lot on the line for LaFleur last night. They kept showing his brother and Kyle and one of his older coaching friends whose name is escaping me. It was 3 against 1 last night, and they showed LaFleur just all alone on the sideline. That poor son of a bitch wanted to win that game more than anything, and I think that, he's going to bounce back. He's going to improve and only get better. It's a side effect of having a rookie head coach. I love our head coach. I think LaFleur is going to have many wonderful seasons in Green Bay. But he got bested last night, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the NFL. Bill Belichick was not Bill Belichick on day one. It took years of practice and a lot of hard work. Let's see. Pac-Man Jake asking, how's the new dad life? Well, it's the same as the old dad life. There's not enough alcohol, and the kids just don't sleep enough. That's just the reality of the situation. Luckily, and I'm biased, she's somewhat adorable, so we'll just have her stare at me for a while. Maybe that will work. So I do. I enjoy the dad life, and it's just me and her tonight. And I didn't want to reschedule the live Packer podcast just because I had a crying baby. So here we are. It's going good. And podcast misses his two sons that were that small. I think it's a catch-22. I think when my kids grow up, I will be perfectly fine with that. I will be okay with just going to Lambeau Field every week and not having to pay for babies that look adorable. Boy, I'm getting myself off topic. So the play action with that fake Rodgers had was absolutely beautiful. He had 2 seconds that would have been a beautiful throw. Mercedes was seldom used to help Light. It wasn't a wise choice. I agree 100%, Pac-Man Jake. I didn't even think of that, so I'm going to give you a lot of credit. And I think this was brought up earlier throughout the comment section as well, but they should have brought additional help. They brought help from the running back side as far as picking up that block for Light, but I think they should have implemented Mercedes a little bit more to help out on that side of the line and definitely keep Rodgers upright, and then occasionally use him as an actual target later on throughout that game. Snow-wise, it's okay if we don't win the Super Bowl this year. We have to remember this is a rookie head coach, a new system, and several new defensive pieces that are still trying to mesh. Just happy we're at least 8-3. Now, awesome. 100% agree with you. And I'm not giving up on the season, and that's probably one of the things that I love so much about the team that we have, is that we just have to make it into the playoffs, and that's still, guys, that's almost a for sure thing that we're going to find ourselves in the playoffs, and then you don't know what's going to happen from week to week. How the ball's going to bounce, like a fumble that happens in the first drive and ends up on the two-yard line. Those are things that you can't predict that make a difference throughout the course of a game. I think that our team is really set up well for year two. Before the season started, before training camp even started, I had that conversation with my dad and my brother that I'm like, it's hard to go into your first season under a new coach and go all the way and win yourself a Super Bowl. I don't know if it's ever really been done before. I'd have to dive into the statistics more. But this team will improve. This team will get better. Every little bit of experience helps. These challenges like last night, these ass kickings like last night will help shape this team and make them better. And yeah, we have a bright future, but at the same time, at 8-3, we still have a bright season ahead of us and a lot of football left to play, and hopefully a deep playoff run. A deep playoff run is definitely something that I'm still holding on to. Graham25 tuning in. What's up, man? What's up? Sad Sunday for the Packers, but hey, we got a bounce back game against the Giants coming up, and hopefully that game does not turn into a trap game. Now, they talked about this a lot. I listen to, there's not a lot of other Packer podcasts that I listen to. I chime into Tom Grassi every once in a while, which I know many of you are familiar with on the YouTube lands. I try to shut it out, to be honest with you, because I don't want to kind of warp my opinions and how my feelings typically go. But I do listen to the Packers Unscripted by the Green Bay Packers guys, Wes and Hod. And one thing that they really pointed out was, you're going from the West Coast, late night game, and then they have to prepare this week for a East Coast trip out against the Giants, and the Giants have been one of those underperforming teams. This should be an easy win for Green Bay, but there's a lot of different, there's just the mental aspect of it from not only the travel, but just from what happened on Sunday night, that they had a wake-up call. As I said before, they now realize that the bar has been raised for where they need to perform, and I think they will be fine in New York. I think they'll be fine at home against Washington. But yeah, they definitely need to kind of take a hard look in the mirror and continue to get better these next 3 weeks before that Minnesota Vikings game. So yeah, Graham25, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. Awesome. I think we should have kicked Jenkins out to Brian's position, then put Light into the interior, would have helped him out. Now, I don't know if I would have put Jenkins out. The biggest thing that I heard about Billy Turner coming into this season and when we signed him is that he had the flexibility to not only play guard, but to play tackle. And for whatever reason, they're not trying to move him to tackle. I'm not sure if it's because Corey Linsley was struggling so much that they wanted to keep him on the interior. But it would be really interesting if Bulaga does have to miss extended time, and it looks like it could be a possible MCL that they're getting scans for. I'm not sure if the results came back or not. I had a busy day, as you can tell. I got a busy life, mind you. But it would be interesting to see if they take Billy Turner and swing him out to the tackle position, if in fact that Bulaga misses extended time. I think that if he is more than capable of playing that position, that they should throw him out there and at least see if he can kind of hold his own. Ravens up 42-6 with 12:36 left in the fourth and just picked off Goff. Guys, that's the reality of this season right now. Every year, teams emerge above, the rest of the pack, and there's no pun intended there whatsoever. But you look at a team like Ravens, who week in and week out put up dominant performances. That is a different level of team. You look at a team like San Francisco 49ers, who did not back down last night. I love those two teams. Next week's matchup is going to be a really good game between those guys facing off. Elton is an interior guy, more of a guard and center type. Billy Turner might be able to slide over to right tackle. Thank you, Pac-Man Jake, for doubling up on my opinion. Billy Turner is too important where he is to move him over. Podcast just shooting down the thoughts. Is this Ravens hype real? Yes, the Ravens hype is real. They have a great team. You look at their record, I think they have 2 losses, but they're all cylinders are firing. They are going 100%, and they seem like a team that's going to be very difficult to beat as we head down the stretch here. So I'm just glad they're not in the NFC North. That would be absolutely awful. Jenkins was scouted as a right tackle or guard. He can play multiple positions. You guys are going back and forth on that. And Pac-Man Jake, yeah, some did label him a tackle. You guys are still talking about that. So you guys figure out whether or not Jenkins can play tackle, or if Billy Turner can play tackle, or if Alex Lake can play tackle, for that matter of fact. Hopefully we just get Brian Bulaga back for the rest of the season, so we don't even have to have that discussion, and we can just kind of figure out some more pressing concerns amongst our team rather than who's going to be playing tackle for us. Packers in the West Coast have produced duds, 11 against LA, 8 in San Francisco, and there's some other crazy stats out there too that I didn't have time to write down, just about how Rodgers has performed on the West Coast in his career. If you include Seattle into the West Coast, which I don't know why you wouldn't, they're on the West Coast, they're not California, but hey, West Coast, he has not performed very well in those types of games. Just overall record, I think his performances have been okay, but what do I have? Hold on, let me look at my stat here, because one thing that absolutely shocked me, if there wasn't anything else that stands out among last night's game, is the amount of passing yards. So let's let this thing load. Let's see, San Francisco. So the fewest pass yards. So heading into Week 12, they have the fewest pass yards per game at 142. And I even went out on a limb and said it, that Rodgers will easily throw for 142 yards. He hardly cracked 100 yards passing last night. And that says something about that defense. They're on a whole nother level with how they go out there and get after the quarterback and just create havoc for the offenses that they face. Let's see here. Let's all remember who Harbaugh brothers' quarterback was. This playbook is Kaepernick's plays. I'm trying to read. I can't even read. John went to his brother and said, "Hey, I got a kid like Cap. I need your help." And there's smiley faces. And that is where we are. How long have we been talking? 43 minutes in. Holy cow, how the time flies. 9:45. She's still awake. I have a full drink. Well, let's take a couple more questions, and then we will wrap up this episode. This has gone on way longer than I anticipated it to go on, as we're dropping nooks. I'll just say once again, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I don't know if this Monday night format is going, all that well. I think it seemed like I was getting more viewers on Tuesday nights, and obviously with a game like the Ravens and the Rams, it can draw some attention away from, it gives you something maybe better to watch, for lack of a better phrase. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. 860 subscribers, 140 away from 1,000. We're getting there. I think by the time I hit the playoffs, I should be at 1,000 subscribers. And at that point, free cake for everyone. Everyone gets free cake. And I give away this canvas. I forgot that this thing will end up in one of your guys' man caves in the very near future. Snow is Bulag is expected to miss multiple weeks, but won't be done for the season. So that's kind of the status on him. Non-confirmed, of course, but that's currently the status on him. Catherick, who do you think we're giving up the big plays? King got smoked for a touchdown, but I don't think he's that bad. One thing I want to do is go back and look at that play. I'm very interested what was going on with our safety positions, if they were designated to blitz or if someone just kind of got caught off guard as far as our safety group. But just in general, that Kevin King has had, I feel like I'm going to have to start keeping a journal to prove a point with Kevin King. He's getting the majority of the passes thrown his direction, and that's where the majority of the receptions are coming from. Hands down, they got to figure out an answer. Whether they have to use him differently, maybe they play more man, as suggested earlier. But they definitely have to figure out a way to kind of lock down that side of the field, because Jair has been doing a fairly decent job on the opposite end of the field, or the opposite side of the field. Yeah, he has a knee sprain. We're talking about Bulag again. Do you believe the Packers are locked into the 3rd seed? I do. Now, if you guys remember my... I don't know if you guys even watched my other videos, quite frankly. But in my bye-week video, I had my end-of-season predictions. I had the Packers losing to San Francisco. I had the Packers losing to Minnesota. And I still had Green Bay with a 2nd seed in the NFC. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is that even possible? Well, there are a lot of interesting matchups coming down in this final 5 weeks of the season. You look at San Francisco playing the Ravens and the Saints, and they play Seattle again. You look at some matchups that the Vikings have against Seattle next week. For the most part, I think the Vikings have a pretty easy schedule. And then you look at some of the matchups that Seattle has, which I think I have pulled off to the side here, that I'm going to take a real quick peek at. Click, zoom. So Seattle has at home against the Vikings. They go to Los Angeles. They have to play Carolina again. And I did say, and I do believe that they split one of those games against Carolina. That's actually the Saints. They split one of their games against Carolina. And then they finish off against Arizona and San Francisco. So there are areas. The Packers own the tiebreaker against the Saints currently. But outside of that, is that who they hold? I'm losing my mind right now. Yeah, they hold the tiebreaker against the Saints. I don't think they hold the tiebreaker against the Seahawks. And then sometimes I sound really intelligent when I talk, and sometimes I lose my train of thought. And that's what happens when you pass 47 minutes in a live stream. But I think there will be some movement. I think either way, the Packers end up with the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, and I'm not necessarily sure that you want to have that 3rd seed, because if the standings kind of shake out the way that we see them going, whoever wins the NFC North will have the 3rd seed. Whoever loses the NFC North will have the 6th seed. So you look at San Francisco and the Seahawks, they're going to have either possibly the 1 or 2 seeds, and then possibly that 5th seed. They're going to have a better record than the NFC North opponent. So either Green Bay is going to have to travel to Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs, or Minnesota is going to have to travel to Green Bay. And either way, I don't want anything to do with that matchup. I don't want to play a division opponent right away the first round of the playoffs. I would prefer that they find themselves in that 2nd seed, get themselves a bye, and kind of let some of those teams figure themselves out. But they definitely control. If they win out the rest of the year, they lock down that 2nd seed. If they falter and drop to Minnesota, odds are that they end up in the 3rd seed, or they fall all the way down to that 6th seed, which would be absolutely crazy. That'd be a 12-4 team in the 6th seed for the NFC, which is absolutely crazy. What else we talking about? Maybe we should wrap up the video. You're just staring at me, and you don't even want this. I'm gonna set that down. You're being good. You're being good. Should have drafted TJ Watt instead of Kevin King. Hindsight is 2020, and 100% that is 2020. But I think all of you were sitting there yelling at the TV when they decided to draft out of the first round and give up TJ Watt to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was one of the more frustrating NFL drafts I have watched. Pac-Man, it'd be okay with Minnesota coming to Lambeau in the wild card. We can beat them. I mean, I think Kirk Cousins will probably fold under pressure, but Hey, so we are just shy of 50 minutes in. My arm's getting tired. My back hurts. 8 viewers. Many of you guys tuned in throughout the entire show, but for the most part, the thing has dwindled down a little bit. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, chiming in, checking out the video. I'm going to wrap this thing up. I am going to finish my beverage and probably just stare at a baby for the next hour until she falls asleep. But thank you guys for tuning in and checking the video. This will probably be the last time we have a live baby on the show. It's always a good time. We will be back next Monday to recap the New York Giants game, and that should be an easy victory, but no game is a given in the NFL, so hopefully the Packers come out with just a blowout victory and really kind of put themselves, back in a movement or a momentum for the rest of the season. So yeah, we'll chime out for the rest of the night. Thank you guys, and have yourselves, until next time, that's what I meant to say, until next time, I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.